Our first item is a presentation by the Reverend Dr. Kevin Jones on the workforce development programs.
Thank you, Mayor. Tomas, you want to come up? Mayor, Commissioners, good morning. Kevin Jones, Coordinator of Community Initiatives in the Mayor's Office. You want to introduce yourself?
My name is Tomas Evangelista. Good morning, Mayor, Commissioner, everyone else. I am the Senior Director of Program and Operations of the Urban League.
So just real quick, I just want to set the table. I coordinate something called the Mayor's Village Initiative, which is an initiative working with African American males in the north end of our city. We have an employment training arm of this work, which the Urban League is providing leadership for. But I just want to go through a couple of slides. It's not working. Okay, so a lot of this work is focused on young men 25 and younger living in the historic Northwest, Coleman Park, and Pleasant City communities. The way we decided on where we wanted to focus our work with black males is with the number of homicides and the high level 1 offenses in these communities. So the goal was about 5 years ago now, how did we want to start addressing this issue. This is just a map of the neighborhood where you see shootings from 2012 to 2017. Across the city. The one slide to your left is citywide. As you can see, the majority of these offenses, unfortunately, happens in these targeted neighborhoods, which I just mentioned, and these are the homicides. For 5 years, once again, citywide and in the 3 target neighborhoods. So the goal of this initiative is to ensure West Palm Beach, where all African American males are safe, empowered, and secure. And these are the 5 pillar areas that we are looking at: crime prevention, intervention, reentry in the justice system, employment training, education, and health. So we have 15 objectives and 75 strategies. So I just want to initially set the context for the plan that we have developed. But now I'm going to turn it over to Tomas with the Urban League, and he's going to speak specifically this morning about the whole employment training piece. Tomas? There you go.
Thank you, Kevin. Yeah, close it out for you. So this is not my computer, so I'm a little lost. Let me just find.
See him right there. You can click on.
Oh, there you go. Right there. All right. Good morning once again. First, I'm going to introduce the team. I'm going to provide some context, and then we'll get into the nitty-gritty. We have 2 programs. We have a program called the Urban Youth Empowerment Program. We have 2 people that run this program, a case manager by the name of Richard Haynes, who's sitting in the back. He's wearing a red shirt. And we have a Miles Davis, not the famous musician, but another Miles Davis, who is an actual case manager. The second grant is a Clean Team grant, and that is ran by Mr. Terrence Reed. Both of these programs are overseen by Marie Sanchez, Senior Vice President of Programs, as well as myself, Senior Director of Programs and Operations. So here's what I would like to convey this morning. I'm going to provide a brief overview. We're going to look at some of the outcomes from the last fiscal year or program year. I'm going to talk about the strengths as well as where some opportunities lie moving forward. And then I will field any questions, and the team is here who can answer specific questions if you do have any. So let me provide a little context before I get into the actual grants themselves. Our mission statement as an organization is to assist African Americans and other minorities in the achievement of social and economic equality. Having said that, We are one of 90 affiliates. We're spread across 35 states. We're in 300 plus communities, and we positively impact roughly 2 million people annually. This organization has over 100 rich years of impacting communities and changing lives. So why am I bringing this up? I'm bringing this up because we use a workforce development model that is validated, it's evidence-based, it's studied across our entire movement, but more importantly, it has been recognized by the U.S. Department of Labor. It's not a fly-by-night program that we said, we have an opportunity, let's create something and then execute. This occurs all across the entire portfolio of affiliates. So here are the 2 grants. The City of West Palm Beach, UYEP, the acronym stands for Urban Youth Empowerment Program. This fiscal year, it was increased to $159,000. And then we have the Clean Team, which is valued at $95,000. So let's look at how we did. I don't have a pointer, so I'm going to use this cursor. Last program year, our goal was to enroll 35 African Americans on the North End. And let me pause for a second. Before we took on this project, before Patrick Franklin, our president and CEO, takes on any project at the Urban League, he asks 3 questions. He understands the importance of taking on a project. The first question is this project relevant? The second question is, can we be prolific? And then the third question becomes, are you going to add value to something other than the Urban League? If we cannot answer those 3 questions successfully, we don't move forward. So the value, the relevancy, and being productive will come into play on the back end of this presentation. 35 individuals we need to enroll, we enrolled 37. Completed training, it's a workforce development training program. And I'll talk about the strengths in about 3 slides. We actually nailed it. Engagement in subsidized work experience, which I'll talk about a little later, we nailed it. Began gainful employment, we nailed it. Case conferencing, we nailed it. In short, I have this graphic, but I also have handouts you can take. It pretty much shows what we've done deliverable-wise, as well as our accomplishments. And here's a little success story. We have a 20-year-old high school graduate who lives in a violent crime and drug-ridden neighborhood. He was unable to complete college. He returned to West Palm Beach. He actually enrolled in our program. He completed our vocational training, began an internship with the City of West Palm Beach Public Works Department. Upon completion of that internship, he actually accepted a position, and he's now a technician earning $15 an hour. That is an accomplishment. We took one individual who, not necessarily disenfranchised, but didn't necessarily know where his opportunities were, and we showed him. And that's going to come into effect when I talk about the strengths of these programs. The second program, Clean Team. We nailed it. The Clean Team is led by one leader, a supervisor, and 5 individuals that goes around in the morning hours and cleans up our streets. Now that doesn't sound significant, but it is. And I'll talk about that when we're talking about the value of both of these programs. 28 members completed the training, roughly 354 hours per participant for a total number of 1,700 hours. 2,450 bags of garbage were collected. And this is not your regular garbage collection route. This is garbage that's flying on the street. If you look at the number of gallons, we're over 100,000 gallons of trash. So what does this do? It adds to the beautification of the large amount of money on streetscaping and landscaping that the city pours into our city. We have another success story, but due to the limitation of time, I do have handouts, and I will give them to you so you can actually review them. Here's where I really want to spend some time, the program strengths. So I started off by saying Patrick asked 3 questions. Are we relevant? Do we add value? And are we productive, prolific? Well, every participant that comes through here, 6 things happen. They gain a set of soft skills that has not been taught in school, or let me rephrase that, has not been received in school because they were disinterested. We give them an option for a high school diploma or GED attainment. We provide training, and all of a sudden, they have a sense of purpose. But more importantly, they become marketable. You couple all of this with a case management aspect, someone that's rooting in your corner by Miles and Mr. Richard, all of a sudden, you're turning an opportunity around for somebody who, for the lack of a better word, was disenfranchised or disinterested. And what do? You get an employment opportunity. But here's where we're adding value, and this is what's more important to Patrick, because Patrick realizes, Patrick again being our president and CEO, he realizes that we have to be something greater than the benefit to us. So how does it affect the city employer-wise? The average cost to hire an employee in a professional capacity is roughly $4,000. For a service industry, it's roughly $1,000. The average time an employer spends on non-income-producing activities is roughly at 40%. By bringing this project on, we are now giving employers a human resource arm. We're introducing them to a population that might not necessarily have that opportunity with case management. We're also giving them subsidized labor. What does that do? That adds to their bottom line. And what does that do? That gives them viability, sustainability, with the potential of growth. So now, as we become ambassadors and as the participants become ambassadors, all of these small businesses that are benefiting are realizing that the city is actually pro-business, pro-small business. And that's where the buy-in comes in. They also get a lot of marketing. When Richard, Terrence, and Miles goes out, it's not an Urban League program. We never say this is an Urban League program. This is a City of West Palm Beach program. And we're proud to do that because we're ambassadors, and the proof is in the pudding with the participants. Now, here's the program strengths for the city. Patrick wants us to make sure we're adding value and we're relevant. This is the program. This is what I'm responsible for. We get 2 grants, the workforce development grants, and here's where the magic happens. We stand on 4 pillars: education, employment, housing, and healthcare. Every single program that comes through our house has to be integrated. So we're hitting 4 key areas. So let me talk about education. Every participant is given the opportunity of GED, high school diploma, and or vocational training. We actually sweetened that this time around. Richard had identified non-traditional vocational training programs. What is that? We sent an individual to become certified in tattooing. We also certified an individual in DJ, what is that, Richard?
Music engineering.
There's an actual DJ school in West Palm Beach started by 2 Dreyfus students, and we found it. And all of a sudden, we built that interest. So that's the education piece. The employment piece, well, that by design is what the 2 grants were developed for. Now let me talk about housing. All of our participants become educated with housing. We have housing programs for first-time buyers as well as foreclosure prevention. One of the participants actually now can afford housing with a full-time job who has a very brand new infant in one of our apartments off of Henrietta. We're giving them that opportunity, knowing their background. Why? Because we have to add value to the community that we're in. But more importantly, everything goes back to assist African Americans in the achievement of social and economic equality. Patrick believes in it, and he charges us every day to make sure we're living up to that statement. But here's the piece that is hidden, healthcare. We have an HIV grant. We have a hepatitis C grant. We require all our participants to get tested. We understand the importance of health, and we couple that with food. We have a food pantry. What we're trying to do is we're trying to eliminate all the barriers. So we're greater than just a workforce development program. It's a holistic approach when we're looking at an individual. So if you take our workforce grants, you couple that with service integration, and how does that add value to the city? We add value to three of the five, what is it, 6 pillars? 3 of the 6 pillars that the city stands for. The first one is the economy and jobs. We are assisting employers, the small business, with subsidizing labor, acting as their HR arm, their marketing arm, and freeing up their time so they can spend it on income-generating activities. Equity and empowerment. We're giving them the tools and the resources within the community that they may not be aware of so that they can have more opportunity to advance in life. And lastly, safety. One of our greatest and strongest partners is the West Palm Beach Police Department. And let me talk about them for a second. When we're looking at community engagement, and we come in and we participate with West Palm Beach Police Department, the small businesses realize that the police department in the city is not only about public safety, it's also about community involvement. We get our recruitment through multiple activities that the police department has each month, and there's multiple officers that go with us, along with our team, to the businesses and says, we are part of the program, we're part of the city, we want to be heard, we want to be seen. How can we help? And that is one of our most beautiful partnerships that we can have. So this workforce development, which began as a grant, we started with cooperation with our partners, it ended to coordination, but right now, we're collaborating. And that's where the magic is happening. So where does that leave us? We have opportunities to grow this, and we have opportunities to make some serious impact within the community. Oops. Any questions?
One question I have.
Yes, Mayor.
And I've spoken to Dr. Jones. First of all, thank you for the presentation. Thank
Certainly.
you both for this. Is there any way we could replicate the model that we have with the clean team to other types of industries? Are you looking at other types of industries, employers, even under the workforce training development? Are we getting buy-in from the private sector for some of these things?
Yes, there's two answers to that question. We can replicate it, definitely, to other industries, and we have been more than just the clean team. We've pretty much are in 5 different industries. We're in healthcare, we're in retail, we're in food and lodging, we are in customer service, and we are in parks and recs, or I don't know, maintenance, if you will. Now, the opportunity lies in that we're currently focusing on the African American males on the north end of the city. We're excluding an enormous portion of the entire city when it comes to females, when it comes to other individuals other than African American males. Patrick had a conversation with me 2 days ago, and he goes, Tomas, listen, this project is going to wrap up in roughly 9 months, 8 months. He goes, what's the plan? And I says, well, the plan is we can grow this, and we can make more positive impact if we looked beyond what we're currently doing.
Okay. Madam President.
Thank you, Tomas, for the presentation.
Yes, ma'am.
As a nonprofit leader myself, I understand how difficult it is to show the impact sometimes of the funding we receive and the programs that we run, and I think you did an excellent job of really relating how the funding is transforming lives, and thank you for sharing those personal stories. I really appreciate that. I'm grateful that the city typically leads the county and the area in jobs and job creation. And I'm especially glad that we're focusing on African American males, other minorities. I love that you're aware of others that we might not be addressing. So my question relates to our program with NCAT, and I don't know if you're familiar with this or maybe other staff. I saw Patrick at our first NCAT presentation a few weeks ago. Is the Urban League involved in that job training program as well? I mean,
I am not familiar with the NCAT. Ms. Marie, are you familiar? Can you be a little more specific so I may be able to address it?
I don't know what
The acronym?
the acronym
National
is.
Center for Arts and Technology. Yeah, it's a program that the city is looking to bring in. It's based upon a model that we saw in Pittsburgh, and it works with young people, not just African Americans, but young people, giving them training and et cetera. So we're, rather than trying to go through all the details now, maybe Kevin, you could pull him aside, educate him, and that's a very good point. We should try to bring them into that tent.
Well, I loved what you were saying, Tomas, about a tried and true program, and I understand that this group that's coming in also has that experience, but I'd love to be able to leverage some programs we have here.
If I may, Commissioner, Patrick was actually part of the contingency that went to Pittsburgh, and I know he was on the initial board. I don't know if he's still a board member. But, I mean, personally, I see it as a marriage where these guys are recruiting young men in the neighborhood where potentially this facility could be, which I think is a great idea, having a space, having a training center in the neighborhood. Because, you know, there's a lot of good programs out here, but they're, you know, far outside of their catchment area. So I believe there is a partnership that could take place.
Thank you.
Commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Lucy.
First, let me say bravo for seems to be a job well done, and that this program is working. You know, I was on the city's Criminal Justice Advisory Committee for probably 6 or 7 years, and I was aware of some of the things that the Youth Empowerment did. I really wasn't aware of the connection with the Urban League. Right. So that's interesting that you mentioned that you're kind of behind the scenes and you're pushing. You know, it's to the public, it's a West Palm Beach project. So, you know, great job for what we're doing right now. You had mentioned that we have 2 grants. What does the future look like, outlook for funding with those grants? Will those grants be?
Well, historically, the grants are renewable. They're for 1-year increments. If we're looking at impact, and let me back off for a little bit. This is not the only workforce grant that we operate. We operate roughly 4 workforce grants. One was actually funded out of England, the Red Nose Grant. We were actually in the school system for truancy, and we nailed it. We nailed it so well that they actually came back and renewed it for a 2nd year. But to answer your question specifically, these are 1-year incremental grants. If we would like to have maximum impact, we're looking for 2 to 3 years, because that's where the workforce development grant timeframe normally sits at.
Okay.
Another question. One comment I did want to make, and I appreciate your having data, and Reverend Jones and I have had conversations, because as we move forward with the Mayor's Village Initiative and other things, it's going to be so important that we're armed with data so we could see what kind of success we're making. So please continue. The only thing I would like to add, that we could see if we could track some of these individuals year 2, year 3, just to make sure there's a lasting impact on their lives, and maybe incorporating that in some of the information that's reported back to us.
So here's what Patrick charges us with. Because the grants are 1 year, the funding ends at 1 year. And because it was renewed the 2nd year, he goes, continue to serve, as well as now we're in our 3rd year. We are aggregating that data, but we're also aggregating data for all our workforce development programs, which will add to a compelling narrative of the usefulness, the practicality, as well as the validity of the programming.
Great. And then finally, let me offer my assistance. If you are making approaches to members of the private sector, and it may help to have the mayor, either attend that meeting or make a phone call, I'm happy to do that. this position has a little bit of influence and power, and I'd like to certainly use that in proper ways. So I call it the bully pulpit. So if you need the power of the bully pulpit as you're having some of these meetings or making some of these approaches to the private sector, I'm happy to help.
We will definitely take that offer. And to add to that point, we just ended our Red Nose Grant out of England. And what we did is we have 15 private partners for subsidized work experience. And we presented them with a plaque and a letter. And that went so far. We actually have photographs, and I think that bodes very well for our city, the commitment as well as the buy-in for our partnerships. So thank you for that. Yes.
Any other questions?
You addressed it. Thank you.
Okay. Well,
Thank you.
again, thank you for your presentation. Look forward to hearing more. And if you're looking for more money, these three people are the ones you probably should talk to.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.